shouting to be heard, and still Janelle was aware of the world around her. Every move would be amplified, every feeling picked apart, so she said nothing, not to the cameras, not even to some of her children at first. Because she wasn't ready to share something new, she was still figuring out how to release something old. One night, as the Arizona sun set low and the sky turned orange, David asked her a question that froze her heart. If no one was watching, what would you choose? She didn't respond then. But that question was the start of all the events thereafter. The unraveling did not occur in a single explosive argument. It arrived in pieces, small, quiet scenes where Janelle came to realize the reality of her life with Kody as it truly existed. It began with silence, the kind which intrudes into a room and remains there, regardless of the amount you speak in circles around it. Kody's visits grew shorter. His tone is harder. Each discussion of the family was a negotiation she hadn't willingly entered into. He'd arrive with the same agitation, pacing back and forth as they discussed plans, land, appearance, legacy, always legacy, never peace. You don't know what is on the line, Janelle, he said one evening, standing outside the RV door. I know, she answered quietly. I just don't think it is what you think it is. That was when she first recognized that she no longer feared losing him, that she feared losing herself if she remained with him. In the shadows, the children noticed too, the tension, the endless explaining. The way she smiled in front of the cameras but was hollow when they were gone. Even Robin picked up on the difference, though she attempted to conceal it behind pity. She is just exhausted, Robin said to one of the producers. This lifestyle takes a toll on everyone. But her voice cracked, because she realized that wasn't the complete truth. By the time Janelle ran into David again, this time at a roadside diner, she was prepared to quit lying. He didn't require explanations. He simply sat there the way you do when you truly care what the response is going to be. You don't require approval to begin again, he spoke softly. It feels like I do, she confessed. Perhaps you've been living someone else's narrative. Those words cut deeper than he could possibly have imagined. Because they were true. All of those headlines, all of those storylines, all of those confessionals had become part of a narrative of Janelle that no longer exists. She wasn't the serene, dutiful second wife keeping the family intact. She was a woman standing in the center of a crumbling concept and choosing to move away before it killed her. The following months were a blur, less shooting, fewer calls. A growing distance that no one seemed willing to close. Then, one evening, she packed up her RV, stood in front of the open desert, and said the words out loud just to hear how they sounded. I'm done. There was no anger in it, only relief. The kind that comes after years of surviving. That night, she called David, no speeches, no drama, just a quiet, certain voice. I think I'm ready, she said. Ready for what? He asked. To live like the cameras aren't watching. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something new. Peace. But peace, as she was about to learn, doesn't come without a price. The call came late past midnight when the desert was quiet and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Kody's voice on the other end wasn't angry at first. It was cold, controlled. The kind of tone he used when he was scared but refused to admit it. You're making a mistake, Janelle, he said. Maybe, she replied, but at least it's mine. There was a pause, long and heavy. This family still has a purpose. You walking away. It destroys everything we created. What we created, she replied, voice gentle but firm, was a prison. Silence. Then a sharp breath, the kind that becomes anger. You think taking off with some stranger solves this. You think it makes you an adult. It is not about him, Kody, she told him. It is about me. An said there was no shouting, no cameras to document the performance. Two people who had nothing more to say to each other, except the truth they didn't want to hear. Kody hung up first, and that silence afterwards, it wasn't painful, it was purifying. The next morning, Robin appeared at Janelle's temporary rental home, no cameras, no producers. Just her and the burdens of too many unspoken fears. She didn't knock immediately. She was on the porch, turning her ring, practicing words she wasn't certain she believed in. When the door finally creaked open, Janelle appeared serene, nearly tranquil. You don't have to do this, Robin blurted before she could change her mind. You don't have to marry him. We can repair it, Robin, Janelle told her softly. This didn't happen overnight. Robin's eyes welled not with pity but with something akin to fear. You are going to ruin him. You know that, don't you? You're going to destroy Kody, Janelle hesitated. It wasn't supposed to end this way. The Flagstaff courthouse was never constructed for times like these. times when reality pushed so insistently against the walls that even the marble quivered. Janelle Brown stood close to the bench, her hands firm, her eyes unclouded. Cameras waited across the aisle. The air was heavy, electric, anticipatory. She wore no sign of uncertainty, a light blue suit, a gold chain around her throat, a ring that sparkled in the low ceiling lights. Not the old wedding band. This one was new, bold, unafraid, hers. A murmur ran through the courtroom when she whispered it, almost under her breath but loud enough to echo. "I'm finally free." Kody's head turned first, Robin followed, her lips tightening, eyes searching for a script that no longer existed. The judge looked up, confused, as if he too had stumbled into a scene that wasn't on the docket. But Janelle didn't flinch. She'd spent years getting ready for this very moment, the one that would seal the book on the family that had once defined her and launch another she'd written for herself. Outside, reporters braced forward, pens poised. Within, nobody stirred, because everybody understood what that one sentence did mean. It was more than a statement, it was a detonator. For an uncomfortable, tense moment, nobody took a breath. The resonance of Janelle's words still lingered in the air like smoke from a fire, thick, burning, impossible to get past. Kody's jaw clenched first. He hunched forward, his fists gripping too tightly, knuckles white. To outside observers, it resembled control, but Janelle recognized the expression. It wasn't strength, it was hysteria attempting to put on a mask. Robin shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands making fleeting gestures to the chain at her throat. Her usually composed, camera-ready face had lost its color. "Free," she breathed, as if to herself. Janelle sat with them, serene, near, nurturing. For the first time in years, she didn't resemble a supporting character in another person's narrative. She resembled the woman who'd gone through with ending the performance entirely. "Yes," she whispered, "free." A quiet buzz ran through the audience, reporters, spectators, old friends who'd come to find out what this hearing would reveal. There were rumors everyone had heard, the breakup, the fights about properties, the custody petitions, but nobody had predicted this. This wasn't a matter of money anymore. It was one of identity, and Janelle had just taken hers back from the entire world. The judge cleared his throat, attempting to regain order. "Mrs. Brown, excuse me, Miss Brown, please explain yourself for the record." Janelle smiled, weak but genuine. "Actually, Your Honor," she said, "it is Mrs. Sullivan now." Gasps were spreading throughout the room. Kody blinked, bewildered, as if the words didn't belong in his universe. "You wed him," he managed, his voice cracking just so to give him away. She didn't smirk, she didn't avert her gaze. "Yes," she replied, "I did." And the tale of sister wives, the one the world believed they had gotten to know, imploded in on itself. The camera shutters snapped like a chorus. Robin's hand shook against her temple. Kody seemed to be staring at the ceiling as if the ground beneath him had dropped out. Janelle didn't bat an eyelash, because for once she was the one reading the script. It began softly, not with scandal, not with retribution, just fatigue, the kind that seeps into your marrow after years of leading people on to believe something different. 2 years prior to the courthouse moment, Janelle had been residing in her RV on Coyote Pass, by herself amidst acres of promise that never materialized into something tangible. She would joke and say the desert was her therapist. But what happened was that the silence there had a way of posing questions she did not want to hear every morning. Each morning dawned with the same question: how long am I supposed to continue surviving rather than living? That's when she met David Sullivan, not at a party, not through family friends, just by accident. He was a contractor brought in to consult on water access for the Coyote Pass land. A practical man, quiet, with that kind of calm that doesn't need to prove anything. She remembered the first conversation. "You're the one trying to build paradise out here," he'd said, squinting at the dry ground. "Trying," she'd replied. "But the plan constantly changes," he grinned. "Not the flattering kind, but the kind that knows." And in that instant, Janelle felt something she hadn't in years seen. Not as a wife, not as a cast member, but as an individual. They conversed for an hour that day. The land, the show, the stress of being viewed by millions, yet actually known by no one. He didn't demand secrets, and she didn't provide any. But when he went away, the silence wasn't quite so oppressive. Weeks had gone by, texts became calls, calls became dinners. It wasn't quick, it wasn't dramatic. It was consistent, the sort of love that can exist without. "He's already destroyed enough of himself." The words landed like a slap for a moment. Robin looked small, lost, like the reality she'd built was crumbling and she couldn't find a place to stand. "You don't understand what this will look like," Robin whispered. "Undefined, the world's watching." "Let them," Janelle said. "Undefined, I'm done hiding from it." By the time Robin left, she was shaking. She didn't tell Kody what was said. Not all of it. Undefined enough to infuriate him. And within a matter of hours, the narrative had changed. Whispers turned into headlines. Janelle Brown moves on. Second wife abandons Coyote Pass. Rumors of a new marriage. The empire once wielded by Kody with confidence was unraveling piece by piece. But Janelle didn't pursue the story. She didn't answer. She simply packed a tiny bag, flipped her phone off, and got in the car. No cameras, no handlers, no script, just a woman driving towards the life she'd finally created for herself. The highway from Flagstaff went on for miles, a wispy gray line across the red desert. Janelle drove in silence, music off, GPS off, only the constant thrum of the tires on the road. For the first time in years, she didn't have a place to go that someone else had set. The phone vibrated a few times in the passenger seat, producer calls, texts from loved ones, but she didn't glance. The din of that world was distant now, like a television show she'd given up viewing. When she eventually came to rest, it was in a small town north, 3 hours. A billboard-free place, an eyes-free zone, and cameras, free area, a main street, a diner, and a piece of sky so broad it was painful to gaze at. David arrived there a week later, not because she'd called him, because he was familiar with her enough to know where she'd head. He didn't give speeches or flowers. He merely sat across from her at that same diner where they'd initially met. "You look lighter," he said. "I feel it," she said. He smiled a little, nodded. "Freedom suits you." She laughed for the first time in weeks. Not graciously, not on camera, just a laugh that was coming from somewhere authentic. The days that followed were uncomplicated in a way that seemed revolutionary. They cooked together. I walked slowly at sunset, discussed everything and nothing, asked never about the show and told never from it, ambled instead on topics of land, food, books, and the peculiar comfort of not being observed. For Janelle, it was like learning to breathe again. The silence wasn't vacant, it was healing. She began to write again, small journal entries initially, then longer musings, pages about who she used to be and who she was becoming. Somewhere in the pages, she had started to think of her life as anything but a broken timeline, but as a narrative that had chapters and that she could begin anew. "You ever think about going back?" David asked one evening as they sat on the porch, the sky blazing pink behind them. "No," she said flatly. "Now I don't fit into another person's story anymore." He gazed at her for a while, contemplative, then uttered, "Perhaps it is time you tell your own." Weeks became months. The stories about her fizzled out. The program progressed without her, crammed with rumors and quotes. But Janelle remained silent. She didn't speak up for herself. She didn't clarify, because freedom, she'd come to understand, wasn't about proving oneself. It was about no longer requiring it. That evening when David asked her to marry him, it wasn't big. No flash of cameras, no spotlight. Simply a candle dinner on that same porch and a little black velvet box that had likely been in his pocket for days. "I don't want to rescue you," he said. "I just want to walk beside you." Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "That's all I've ever wanted," she whispered. And when she said yes, it wasn't about romance, it was about reclamation, the start of a life that finally belonged to her. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, not in public, not in a room where every sound echoed like judgment itself. The courtroom in Flagstaff was full again. Reporters filled the benches. Producers hushed in the rear. Even the judge appeared to pick up on this wasn't merely a legal proceeding, but the next episode in a family drama that had outlived its intent. Kody sat at the defense table, fingers interlocked so tightly the knuckles were white. His one-time blonde hair had muted, his face pale and taut. Across the aisle, Janelle no longer anxious, no longer unsure. She dressed in calmness like body armor. Her lawyer leaned in close, saying something quietly, but she merely nodded. Her gaze remained fixed on the judge. "We are here today to conclude the dissolution of financial and property relationships between Mr. Kody Brown and Mrs. Janelle Brown," the judge started out. "Correction," her lawyer murmured, standing up. "Mrs. Janelle Sullivan." A shiver ran through the room. Cameras snapped. Someone made a noise in shock. Kody's head jerked up. His mouth opened, but no words came. "Mrs. Sullivan," the judge repeated, arching a brow. Janelle didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor, I've remarried. The silence that followed was surgical, clean, precise, and devastating. Robin's hand shot to her mouth. Christine blinked hard, trying to process it. Even the court reporter paused mid-typing. But Janelle just sat there, spine straight, fingers folded neatly over a slim folder of documents. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She just was confident, focused, liberated. Kody at last discovered his voice. You can't just move on like that, he babbled. After everything, after the family, after what? She cut in, her voice level. After years of being an afterthought. After begging to be noticed. I tried, Kody, I really did, but you only loved control, not individuals. The words dropped like rocks into quiet water, ripples spreading outward, irrevocable. Her attorney moved into position, depositing a sheaf of papers. Your Honor, these reports detail financial exchanges and asset transfers conducted without the knowledge or authority of Mrs. Sullivan. He pushed them across the bench. Mr. Brown tried to divert joint funds into private LLCs in his name and one in Mrs. Robin Brown's name. Our client wants full restoration back, Kody addressed his attorney, his face ashen. That is a lie, he snarled. It was all family money. Janelle's face remained unchanging. Family money that somehow immediately ceased being family the instant you reached it, she murmured. The judge scanned through the papers, turning page after page. His brow drew deeper with each page. Mr. Brown, he spoke at last, these documents are disturbing. The cameras zoomed in. Janelle's new ring glinted under fluorescent lights, an unspoken assertion that her life had progressed, and his had not across the room. Robin's attorney leaned in, whispering angrily. But Robin did not hear. Her gaze was fixed on Janelle, her eyes wide and trembling. Because at that moment she saw it all so clearly, this was not revenge. It was freedom in its finest definition. Kody attempted again. You think this strengthens you, he growled, his voice breaking. You think leaving it all behind is going to cure everything? No, Janelle replied. But keeping quiet never did either. The judge held up a hand. That is enough. We'll take a brief recess before reviewing the final division of assets. He stood and left. The room buzzed instantly. Reporters scrambling, lawyers huddling. Janelle stayed seated, serene, as Kody leaned forward and whispered, low and bitter, you ruined me. She turned her head slowly, met his eyes, and replied, no, Kody, you did all that yourself. And for the first time, he did not fight back. When court reconvened, the tension was different. The first half had been emotional, personal, but now it turned to something more weighty, real, legal, documented. Janelle sat back while her lawyer rose, a man renowned for his quiet accuracy. He started to lay out a thread: emails, contracts, bank transfers, all that demonstrated what she had long suspected in private. The screen behind the judge came to life, displaying statements attributed to Coyote Pass Holdings, LLC, below the names. One struck out. Manager, Kody Brown. Secondary, Robin Brown. The air was thinned out. Reporters leaned in. Even the judge's aides stopped typing. These monies, the attorney continued, came from joint family accounts. Mrs. Sullivan's income from the show and appearances related to it was sent here without her consent. The first transfers started soon after she left Coyote Pass. Robin's hand went to her chest. That isn't fair, she breathed. It wasn't like that. The attorney didn't hesitate. We have documentation confirming Mrs. Brown signed off on these transfers in the impression they were temporary reassignments. That was 3 years ago. The funds never came back. Kody's attorney attempted to interject, but the judge raised a hand. Let him speak. The following slide revealed something that completely altered the scene. An internal memo from the production company of the show, recording that Kody and Robin had requested any future promotional bonuses to be paid to household aide Janelle, was not included. Neither did the other wives. A wave of whispers swept through the room. Christine slowly shook her head, her complexion pale. They shut us out, she muttered under her breath. Janelle did not gloat. She did not even glance at Kody. Her eyes remained ahead, level and unblinking. For years she had endured his definition of truth, where loyalty was synonymous with silence. Now the trail of paper testified for her. Robin attempted to speak then, her voice shaking. It wasn't greed. It was stable. We were trying to save what was remaining of the family. The judge looked at her. Mrs. Brown, the court isn't looking for motives. We're discussing actions. Kody slapped his hand on the table. You can't comprehend what this family has endured. She is redefining history. No, Janelle broke in gently. I am simply recounting it without you setting the scene. The room fell silent once more. Even the cameras paused on that line. When court recessed for the day, the world beyond had already erupted. Social media hummed. News organizations carried the headline within minutes. Janelle exposes Kody's secret accounts, the money trail behind sister wives. Outside in the parking lot, Janelle emerged into the sunlight, shading her eyes from the cameras. Someone yelled. "How does it feel to win?" She hesitated, raising her gaze, and said in a simple statement, "It is not about winning. It is about honesty." Then she headed to her car and drove off. That evening, while the media aired outtakes from her testimony, Janelle sat on her back porch with David, barefoot and silent. The air in the desert was chilly. The stars yawned wide and limitless above them. "Do you regret coming forward?" he asked her. "No," she replied. "Once, for the first time, I did not let this other man speak for me." He nodded and took her hand, smiling. "Then that is no longer a courtroom story," he said quietly. "It is a freedom story." She smiled back, allowing the words to sink in, because he was correct. The fight wasn't over property or paperwork. It was over closure. And for the first time in her life, Janelle Brown, now Janelle Sullivan, felt the past finally let go by morning. The internet had erupted online. Cuts of Janelle's steady testimony filled every outlet. Her quiet assurance became the thing everyone was discussing. Hashtags ran for hours. Number Janelle speaks, number free at last, number sister wives scandal. The news headlines were merciless. Janelle Brown finally breaks her silence. Robin and Kody under fire for secret money transfers. The marriage that shook sister wives forever. It all happened in the course of one night. Janelle shifted from the reserved, steady wife to the woman who'd shaken the very sister wives universe to its core. But while the world online partying, the other half of the story was on fire. Kody made his first public appearance 2 days later. He met with a local journalist, jaw clenched, eyes flicking between the cameras and his notes. The interview was to be about setting the record straight. Also, it made it worse. "Janelle's rewriting history," he exclaimed, raising his voice. "I gave everything to that family. Everything, and this betrayal." He stopped short, aware his tone was not aiding. "It is not about money," he hastened to add. "It is about loyalty." The video went viral within hours, but not the way he'd wished. Comments poured in, still about control. He can't bear a woman standing up to him. Loyalty isn't ownership, Kody. At the same time, Robin vanished from sight. No interviews, no posts, no comments. Rumors circulated that she was having a tough time sobbing on set, backing out of appearances. Some fans sympathized, some didn't. The story had changed, and for once it wasn't up to them. Janelle, however, remained silent. She didn't tweet, didn't post enigmatic messages, didn't dispute the headlines. A reporter finally tracked her down outside a tiny bookstore in Sedona, and she smiled graciously and said, "I am not angry anymore. I just told the truth. That is all." The piece was on that night. It was only 12 seconds long, but it struck a chord. Her calm became a contrast to Kody's chaos. Her composure became her statement. Even Christine, now remarried herself, reached out privately. "You did what we all wished we could have done," she texted. "We all did it in our own way," Janelle replied. "Mine just took longer." Behind the scenes, the show's producers scrambled. Viewership had spiked 80% after the hearing. They wanted Janelle back for a special episode. She said no. "That story's over," she informed them. "You can't keep filming my healing and calling it drama." Instead, she started working on something else, something of her own, a podcast, something real, unscripted. Hers, she titled it, Finally Free. Every episode wasn't about gossip or revenge. It was about women rebuilding their lives from loss, manipulation, or control. In a month, it reached the top 10 podcasts in its category. And in an instant, Janelle Brown, formerly defined by someone else's story, had rewritten hers. Late one night, David heard her record an outro for an episode. Her voice was calm, warm, assured. "Sometimes freedom isn't about running away," she said into the mic. "It is about walking towards yourself, and when you do, finally, it is quieter than you thought. But it is everything." When she cut off the mic, he turned to her and smiled. "You sound happy," he said. "I am," she said. "For the first time, I don't have to do it." Outside, the desert wind began to howl once more, whining through the evening like a reminder the storm had blown over, and she still stood. The signs began quietly. The world witnessed Kody's rage, but Robin's silence spoke volumes greater than any utterance ever could. She stopped appearing for tapings. Producers were unable to contact her. Even friends reported that her phone went directly to voicemail. Inside the Brown house, things had changed. The house that used to ring with sound and children now felt like a museum of regret, photos from better times adorning the walls, each one a reminder of what they had lost. Kody attempted to maintain the charade. He spoke of rebuilding, of gaining control back. But Robin no longer listened. She was tired of defending him, tired of sweeping up after him, tired of acting like everything was just misplaced. One afternoon, cameras photographed her alone in a supermarket parking lot. No makeup, sunglasses, slumped shoulders. The tabloids labeled it Robin's breakdown, but it wasn't drama, it was despair. She sat at the kitchen table that evening, hands cradling a mug of cold tea. Kody paced back and forth in the room, fulminating about lawyers, about fans turning against him, about betrayal. "They've made you the villain," he bit out. "Maybe we gave them the script," she said quietly. He dropped his pacing. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means people can only believe what is real for so long before they quit believing the act." Kody glared at her mute. He wasn't accustomed to Robin pushing back, not like this, but she didn't let up. "You craved control, Kody. You always did. But control doesn't return your love. It just keeps you seething." Her breath was shaky, but she didn't avert her gaze. "And what are you saying?" he said more softly now. "I am telling you I don't know who we are anymore. I don't even know who I am." He said nothing. He simply walked out of the room. The door closed, the sound ringing out in the house like a warning. Days passed into weeks. Robin took no calls from producers. When they did appear on the doorstep, one day Yoon announced she would not film. "There is nothing to show," she said to them. "The story's over," but the story wasn't over. Not yet. The network had gotten leaked footage, scenes of intimate arguments between Kody and Robin, recorded for a spin-off that never aired, undefined in one scene. Kody yelled swear. Words that he accused Janelle of having poisoned the family, undefined in. Another, Robin was crying, insisting, "She didn't poison us, Kody. We did it to ourselves." The video circulated online. It created a narrative no PR department could sugarcoat. Meanwhile, Janelle remained silent. When a reporter asked her in an interview about the clip, she merely replied, "I hope they get peace. Undefined, that is all any of us ever desired. No bitterness, undefined, no shade. Undefined, just closure." Robin saw that interview from her living room couch, tears streaming down, hair pulled back. Undefined David and Janelle on camera appeared content, peaceful, resolved, human. The irony was cruel. "She actually did it," Robin muttered to herself. Undefined, she actually escaped. Kody, still walking the house in her wake, didn't seem to hear. It was still on the phone calling lawyers, producers, whoever would hear her out. But Robin did hear her, and for the first time she questioned whether perhaps freedom might be something that she could decide as well. It occurred late on a Sunday evening. The house was silent, the kind that occurs when words have been exhausted. Robin sat on the couch wearing her robe, her laptop open but not used. The light from the screen illuminated her face, revealing puffy eyes from tears. For hours, she scrolled through stories she didn't want to see. All of her outlets were reporting on Janelle's new existence, the marriage, the podcast, the tranquility. The comments overflowed with congratulations. Phrases such as strength, grace, and freedom repeated themselves. And amidst all that, Robin noticed her own name. Robin Brown, silent as Kody spirals. Insiders say Robin fears Kody's rage, the wife left behind. She closed the laptop. The sound was too much. In the other room, Kody's voice again became loud, angry, biting, desperate. He was on another call, yelling at a producer over the show is direction. "They're turning me into a monster," he yelled. "They're playing what is on the tape, Kody," the voice said. He hung up the phone, his anger seeping into the walls. "They've cut me to look crazy." "You don't need it done anymore," Robin said softly from in the doorway. He stood stock still. "What did you say? You've been mad for so long yourself anymore." Her voice didn't tremble this time. It was peaceful, slow, but thick with years of silence shattering open. "I can't do this version of us," she went on. "I can't be the one to always explain you, to always clean up after every blast, to be beside you when you set everything on fire." Kody stared at her, then rage-filled. "So now you are against me too." "No, Kody," she whispered. "I am just sick of being collateral damage." She turned away before he could talk back, walked upstairs, shut the door, and for the first time didn't cry. 2 days later, Robin consented to sit for an intimate interview. No studio lights, no makeup team, just her and a tiny handheld camera. She spoke slowly, hesitantly at first, then more assertively. "I don't despise Janelle, I never did," she told him. "I was just scared. Scared that if she didn't leave, it would all come crashing down, and it did. But perhaps it had to," she snorted, wiping away a tear. "We said we were creating something sacred, but we created pressure. Pressure to be faithful, to smile, to keep quiet, I believe. I believe we lost ourselves there." The clip was broadcast the following evening. It went faster than anyone anticipated. Fans did not ridicule her this time. They listened. The woman who once was a villain of sorts suddenly appeared to be something different. Human Kody, however, was furious. He called it a betrayal, said she'd been coached, claimed the network was trying to destroy him. But the public was tired of excuses. For years he had dictated the story. Now the story was dictating itself. That night, Robin packed a small bag. She didn't issue a statement, didn't call the media. She simply got in her vehicle and took off. No one had any idea where she went. But those around her told us that for the first time in years, she'd quit checking her phone. Because perhaps, just perhaps, she'd come to the same realization that Janelle knew. Sometimes freedom isn't about shouting. Sometimes it is the quiet sound of walking away and not looking back. It started the way most endings do, slowly then. Suddenly, in the days following Robin's interview, Kody's world contracted. The calls from producers and network executives, which once came in, became missed opportunities and courteous denials. The program that had once made him the poster child for contemporary polygamy had become a cautionary story. And his name, once in demand, now served as a warning. He attempted to battle it. Every day he wrote statements, lengthy rants in the guise of clarifications. He contacted reporters, insisted on being on the air, and pleaded for a second opportunity to explain his side. No one needed explanations anymore. They demanded truth, and that was the one thing he couldn't provide. His final on-camera outing was during a hastily scheduled network interview. He entered with the same attitude he'd always had, assertive, guarded, scripted, but something in his eyes was different. The flame had been extinguished, replaced by a dull disorientation. The interviewer did not dawdle. "Kody, we have watched you lose 3 wives on television. Did you, in retrospect, wonder if the issue could have been you?" He laughed too hard. "That is preposterous. These women, they gave up. They lost faith in what we were creating." Or the interviewer added softly, "They lost faith in you." The following silence was savage. For an instant, he had opened his mouth to protest. Then he closed it. His hand shook as he picked up a glass of water. When the segment hit the air, the internet did not burst into derisive laughter. It simply fell silent, because what people witnessed was no longer arrogance. It was vacancy. In the background, Kody's universe kept falling apart. The Coyote Pass project, his life's ambition, was foreclosed. The LLCs were terminated. Even the production company parted ways, issuing a statement that the sister wives' journey had come to its natural end. Robin never returned. Christine and Janelle didn't call. Mary had long since gone. He stood by himself for the first time in his life, surrounded by whispers of a legacy that had disintegrated into dust. One night, neighbors reported seeing him standing outside the vacant Flagstaff property, looking out onto the land, just standing. No crew, no cameras, nobody left to impress. This was supposed to mean something, he whispered to himself. "It did," said a voice behind him. He turned around. Christine had crept by, hands in her pockets, watching the same patch of dirt they used to refer to as a dream. "We built something," she said quietly. "It just wasn't supposed to last forever." Kody stared at her at a loss for words. "You guys all left," he said. "All of you." "We didn't leave," said Christine. "We just stopped waiting for you to see us." She walked away, and he was left standing, a man with all he'd ever desired, and none of it he'd held on to. That evening, Kody didn't flip on the lights when he walked in. He sat there alone at the table, the empty house ringing with its own loneliness. For the first time, there was no one he had to blame. 3 times he whispered Janelle's name into the air. Then softer, almost to himself, perhaps she was right. And for the first time in years, Kody Brown ceased defending himself and just sat with the truth. By spring, the dust had settled, the headlines tapered off, the hysteria dissipated, and the Brown name ceased to trend. What had been a sideshow was now a memory. To Janelle, that stillness was precisely what she'd asked for. Her existence now operated on a different beat, slower, more gentle. Mornings began with coffee on the porch, with David, the air crisp and fresh. The desert awakening in muted hues, no timelines, no producers, no one dictates to her how she must structure her life into a narrative. She had gone back to teaching part-time, coaching women in small business ownership. Nothing glamorous, nothing advertised, just honest work that made her feel needed. Her podcast, Finally Free, continued to expand. People wrote in from everywhere, women from small towns, single mothers, individuals, rebuilding their lives after decades of being silent. They referred to her as the calm voice they needed. Every time she had an episode, she told herself she wasn't talking to them, she was talking with them. One night, she and David sat beneath string lights in the backyard. Dinner plates moved to the sides, a gentle breeze blowing in. "Do you ever miss it?" David asked. "What, the show?" She smiled. "Yeah, the cameras, the chaos." She laughed quietly. "Sometimes I miss the people, the early years, before everything became too much, but the madness. I exchanged that for calm, and I am not surrendering it." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You deserved this," she nodded, her eyes glinting. "We all did, in some manner." In a matter of weeks, she had a letter in the mail. No return address, only tidy handwriting on the outside. In the envelope was a brief note, signed by Robin. It said, "You were right. Freedom isn't what I thought it was, but I am learning. Thank you for showing me that it is okay to start over." Janelle read it twice, then folded it and put it in her journal. She didn't share it with anyone, not even David. Some things she'd learned didn't need to be shared with the world to be real. Occasionally, a reporter would reach out asking if she'd ever reunite with the family on camera. Her answer was always the same. "We've all told our stories. Now we're living them." There was no bitterness in her tone anymore, just acceptance. She thought about forgiveness sometimes, what it really meant. It wasn't pretending nothing happened or excusing the pain. It was releasing the grip it had on her life. And one quiet morning, as the sun broke over the horizon, she realized she'd done exactly that. She forgave Kody not because he asked, but because holding on to anger felt too much like the life she'd left behind. That afternoon, she opened her laptop to record the season finale of Finally Free. Her voice came through warm, certain, at peace. "We can't rewrite the past," she said, "but we can stop allowing it to dictate what we are. Freedom isn't loud, it is a steady breath. It is peace after the storm." When she finished, she sat in the quiet for a moment, smiling to herself. Outside, the desert lay out before her, open, quiet, hers. The morning air in Flagstaff held that faint bite of early summer, the kind that makes everything feel new again. Janelle stood at the crest of Coyote Pass, the same ground that had once been a battleground of dreams, betrayals, and broken promises. Now, there were no cameras, no blueprints, no envelopes with plans drawn on the back of them. Just her. She looked out into the desert as the sun came up, gold and peaceful, and for the first time in years, it didn't hurt to remember. She'd lived a life that didn't require approval, a name that didn't require defense, a story that no longer required editing. The din was gone, what was left was real. At the bottom of the slope, David stood by the truck, hands in his pockets, watching her with that steady calm he always possessed. "You ready?" he asked. Janelle turned, grinning. "Yeah, I just wanted to see it one time before we leave." "You are not leaving it behind," he said. "You are taking it with you, just differently." She nodded, undefined. He was right. Each heartbreak, each fight, each headline, they were chapters, not definitions. As they drove away, the ridge disappeared in the rear-view mirror. The open road before her stretched broad, limitless. At a small cafe in Utah later in the week, she met Christine. No camera team, no stylist, just two old buddies giggling over coffee. Christine brought her cup up. "To finally being free," Janelle grinned, tapping her mug against Christine's. "To finally being seen." They laughed, and for a brief instant it was like breathing again. No pressure, no past, just now. A few tables over, someone breathed their names, recognizing them. Undefined, but neither woman looked. Fame was no longer the goal. Peace was. Months flew by. The podcast developed. Her company grew quietly, restoring confidence, finances, and futures to women. In each seminar, she'd remind them one fact. Freedom does not arrive when someone hands it to you. It arrives when you realize you are worth it. And each time she uttered it, she meant it a little bit more. On a night, sitting on the porch as the sun set soft orange, she spread open her journal and wrote down a single sentence on the final page. I am finally free, and I didn't lose myself getting here. She closed the book and breathed slowly out, feeling that muffled kind of happiness that doesn't demand to be acknowledged, it just existed. The wind rustled, running its fingers over the chimes. Somewhere distant, a coyote howled, and the sound rolled out across the open land. A reminder that all the things she ever truly wanted had been waiting for her to release herself from. And that is how the tale of Sister Wives actually concluded. Not with scandal or stardom or another dose of heartache, but with a woman standing in her truth, her peace, and her power. Janelle Brown didn't merely walk away. She walked home to herself. And perhaps that is what freedom actually appears to be.